2, 1.
Welcome to Made for More Living.
One small step for man.
With Johnny Jennings.
Kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy.
The fastest and most exciting hour of news, events, and real estate in Northern California.
And this is a fact that was proved.
Powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Get ready. Here we go.
I woke up excited because we are entering the happiest time of the year. No, I'm not talking about Christmas. It is tax season. And no, it's not the happiest time of the year. But that is why we have Kathy Hill here with us with Tax Tiger, because she's going to be going over, she's got some crazy stories, including one involving Dennis Rodman's ex-wife. We're going to be talking about Tax Tiger and how they fight for their clients and actually how you can actually settle with the IRS. Most people don't even know that. So welcome to the show, Kathy.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Glad to have you. So what's this? You said there's some history that you have working with or a client of Dennis Rodman's ex-wife?
Yes, this is a really cool story. Dennis Rodman and his wife got divorced many years ago. And his ex-wife, Annie, lives here in Sacramento. And what she didn't know was that when she got child support in the divorce, year after year after year, her attorney and her divorce attorney didn't tell her that she had to report that as income. And now all these years go by, many, many years, and she got all this money from Dennis, and it was not reported. All of a sudden, she gets this letter from the IRS that she owes $1 million.
Yikes.
And doesn't have any way to pay it, which is a common story for most people that owe the IRS. They don't know how to pay it.
How did it get that big, though, without her even knowing?
Because she got $10,000 a month in child support. And it just added up. And then when the IRS puts interest and penalties on you, which compound daily, it really grows fast.
So they don't take taxes out of your child support payment?
No, it's your responsibility to claim that on a tax return every year. And she never filed a tax return all these years because she thought she didn't have to claim it.
Got it. So that's where the problem was. She never filed it. So for how many years did she not file?
It was close to 15 years.
Wow. Okay.
She thought she didn't have to claim it, so she never filed a return.
Got it. And so there was just lack of information there. And she's not alone, right? There's so many people that are in similar situations.
She's totally not alone.
Yeah.
Totally not.
How did you meet her? How did she end up becoming a client?
She actually found us online and came to see me. I did a free consultation with her because I do free consultations. And when she told me she owed $1 million to the IRS, I went, oh my goodness. Now I have a lot of clients, but very few of them owe $1 million. And so I gave her the free consultation. I told her I could help her. We have since become fast friends, but it took me years to settle her problem, which normally it only takes me between a few months to a year. But it took me a good 5 years to settle Annie's problem because the IRS was just ugly to her. And they just came down with a hammer on her. So we went back and forth with them for years. I did a settlement offer with her about 3 years into it. And for that $1 million that she owed, they agreed to settle for $11,000.
Wow.
One-time payment.
One-time payment. And the $11,000 was simply because she had $11,000 of equity in a home, because they look at assets that you have as well as income. So I said to her, and the settlement process takes a year. I said, if we settle for $11,000, Annie, can you pay it in a year when it comes due? And she said, yes, I believe I can. I can borrow the $11,000. So we signed the paperwork and we settled. Time to pay it came due, and she couldn't borrow the $11,000.
Oh, no.
And the whole offer went by the wayside. And now the $1 million came back on her head.
Wow.
So how did that work? So why was the settlement due like a year later? Why the delay?
Because the way it works is this. They approve the settlement a year later and the dollar amount, and then they give you 5 months to pay it. If you don't pay it by the 5-month deadline, the offer is dead. It goes away. And all that debt comes back onto your record at the IRS. And now you owe it again. So as life progressed for Annie, she ended up losing the house. Now she has no more equity in the house.
Yeah.
And I did a second offer, a second settlement. And now that $1 million was settled for $100.
$100.
$100.
Oh my gosh. It makes me wonder why I pay my taxes. They seem to go to you.
I
It's
know.
like she couldn't borrow the money from Dennis Rodman.
Oh no, they are in bad. They don't speak. No.
I wonder if she had any memorabilia she could have sold of his, any autographs.
I don't
Here's
know.
a sock. Here's a sock he wore.
Yeah, he's kind.
Whether it was really his or not.
Yeah.
He's not the person that you want to do anything with.
But that's amazing, going from $1 million to a settlement for $100. Come on.
That is astonishing. And the IRS hates it. They do not want to settle at all. So that's why they don't publicize this program. And you've got to know what you're doing to be successful in it. It's a complex program. And like I said, it takes a year to do. But when I learned this program 20 years ago, I started Tax Tiger 20 years ago, simply and purely to make a difference in people's lives financially with the IRS. I'm a Christian faith-based company. And God spoke to my heart and said, Kathy, there's so much corruption in the tax business, in the tax industry of resolution, that somebody needs to jump into this industry and do right by people with honesty and integrity. And Kathy, that needs to be you. I felt God speak that to my heart 20 years ago.
Wow.
And it was really, I sat there, and when I heard God speak it to me, I sat there in shock, and I had this talk with God, and I said, no, I can't do that. I can't. I was working in the corporate world at the time for Rayleigh's corporate office. I knew nothing about taxes. I had no money to start a business. And this was way too big a leap of faith for me. But God asks sometimes big leaps of faith from us. And he asked that of me. And I said to the Lord, look, Lord, I don't have any money to start a business. I don't know anything about taxes. And I don't have a business degree. And all of those things are a recipe for failure in today's business world. And God said back to me, I know all that, but I still choose you. He said, did you forget about Moses in front of the burning bush where I asked Moses to lead my children from Egypt to the promised land? And Moses said, no, not me, Lord. I'm ill-equipped. I stutter. I don't speak well. But God said to Moses, I know that, but I still choose you. And God said to me, I'll provide the money, Kathy, for you to start a business. You can learn what you need to learn about taxes and the IRS. And you don't need a business degree to do this. Man, that was a real wake-up call to me. Now, I've stepped out in faith in my life many times because I've been a Christian since I was a child. But this was too much. But I prayed about it, and God said, this is what I want of you to do. I choose you. So I jumped in. I studied all the IRS rules, regulations, all of what I needed to know to fight the IRS. And when people ask me, Kathy, what do you do? I tell them, I fight the IRS. And I do.
You're a tiger.
I am a tiger. That's why God chose me. I didn't realize it at the time, but I have a tiger personality to fight for people that need an advocate. So I jumped in. I learned it all. Started at the bottom of over 100 companies 20 years ago. And just started working my way up, one client at a time. And God blessed, because I took that leap of faith. Today, I'm number one in the nation with all of these kind of results. And I have multiple offices and clients in all 50 states.
Wow, that's incredible. So what made you even think about, I wonder if there's a way to fight the IRS, or like what made you come up with this business concept? Because normally I just think about filing my taxes. I don't think about fighting the IRS.
Well, it was really a learning process for me. It was just something that I learned, that I had to learn from scratch. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's kind of an amazing story, because most people don't start a business not having any knowledge, any business degree, having to just really learn it from the ground up, which is what I did.
Wow. And so that was 20 years ago. You've had a number of clients, and then you actually help people settle that. So that's something we're going to cover in the next segment. Most people are not aware of. I was not aware of this until I met Kathy, that you are actually able to settle your debt. So we're going to cover that in the next segment right after this.
Anxiety, fear, and embarrassment. If you're one of the millions of Americans with unpaid or unfiled federal taxes, I'm here to offer you some hope and relief. Hi, I'm Kathy Hill, founder of Tax Tiger. Tax Tiger operates on the Christian principles of honesty and integrity. We're a full-service tax firm. Not only do we protect you from the IRS, we prepare your back taxes, release wage and bank levies, and negotiate the best settlements in the nation, many as low as $20. You can trust Tax Tiger to give you an honest and free appraisal of your situation. We will prepare your tax return every year, even if you have no IRS problem. We specialize in settlements and audits. You could be closer to financial freedom than you think, and you need a tiger on your side.
Call Tax Tiger for a free consultation now. 916-393-9085. That's 916-393-9085. Learn more at taxtiger.com.
And hey, if you're listening to today's show and you're thinking about putting your home on the market, but you don't want to go through all the hassle of doing open houses and showings, reach out to Johnny Jennings with Made for More Living, powered by eXp Realty. They make it fast, easy, simple, no matter what kind of condition your home is in. If it's a rental property, if it's an investment property, if it needs repairs, in most cases, Johnny Jennings can get you 3 offers, cash offers, in less than 24 hours. Just go to his website, madeformoreliving.com. Again, madeformoreliving.com.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
So we're back with Kathy Hill with Tax Tiger. In the previous segment, we were talking about how she helped Dennis Rodman's ex-wife go through a settlement plan and actually pay only $10 on $1 million tax bill.
$100.
$100 on $1 million tax bill.
Yes.
Absolutely crazy. And the way you're able to do that is because you settled with the IRS. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So can you walk us through that process? I didn't even know you were able to do that before I met you. How does one go about settling with the IRS?
So that's an amazing program that was authorized by Congress years ago. And it was designed to help people that couldn't afford to pay back the IRS. And so the IRS wasn't going to get the money that was owed. And so through congressional work and plans, the IRS came up with this program. Now, let me tell you, the theory behind the program was that the IRS would offer to settle with a taxpayer that couldn't afford to pay it back in full, but could maybe pay some of it back. So what happened was the IRS wrote these guidelines, wrote this program, put it into black and white, authorized by Congress, which they have to live by. I'm going to tell you in a minute why it's really cool how I found the loopholes through that program to be able to get the settlements that I do. But it was designed, let's take an example. Let's say you owed the IRS $50,000 and you couldn't pay it back. So the theory that the IRS had was, well, maybe they can pay half of it back, $25,000, and we'll forgive the other half. That would make it a win-win situation for both the IRS and the taxpayer.
Yep.
That was the thought process behind this. So they wrote it up that way, although they couldn't write how much each taxpayer could settle for because everybody owes different amounts. And they couldn't put a percentage on it either. So they just had to write it the best they could, which they messed up big time. So here's how they wrote it. We will settle with a taxpayer who meets 2 qualifications. They look at your assets, the dollar amount of your assets, and they look at your monthly income. But let's say you meet those 2 qualifications. The verbiage in black and white says, we will settle for whatever the taxpayer has the ability to pay. Boom. When I was studying this in the very beginning, I decided to specialize in the offer and compromise program, because what a God blessing that is for people that owe a lot of money and can't afford to pay it back. And so I researched the IRS language thoroughly and saw that line that jumped out at me. And the tiger in me said, Kathy, there it is.
The tiger pounced.
They will settle for whatever is the taxpayer's ability to pay. And I said to myself, well, wait a minute. What if the taxpayer has no ability to pay anything?
Yeah.
Well, they won't settle for nothing. You have to offer something. But I said to myself, what if I offered $20 for somebody that owes? And I thought they'll never agree to that, but it's worth an experiment. So,
I love that.
So
it's worth the experiment.
It can't hurt
Let's
to
see
try.
what happens.
Let's see what happens. So I said to myself, the next client that walks through my door for a free consultation and meets both qualifications, and I write up the paperwork to send into the IRS, I'm going to put on the line that says, how much do you offer? I'm going to write $20. Knowing that there's a fight. There's a fight coming. Mm-hmm. So I send the paperwork in. Now, remember, this is a year-long process. I send the paperwork in. It takes 3 months for them to even get back to you. But one day I get a phone call from the IRS. Now, this lady has my paperwork. And she says to me, what in the world is this? I said, what? I played dumb. I said, what? She said,
I love it.
She said, you put in a frivolous offer. We don't do this. I said, what do you mean? She goes, you put $20 down here. I said, I know. Oh, but we don't do that. I said, why not? Because we just don't. I said, ma'am, with all due respect, I said, mate, you must have forgot your own regulations that are in black and white. Wow. I said, should I read them to you? I said, because you know it says that you will settle for whatever is the taxpayer's ability to pay. My taxpayer has no ability to pay anything per the paperwork that I sent in, but he has the ability to borrow $20 from his brother. That's his ability to pay, and you must settle for that. Oh, no, she says, no way. I said, well, and so but I knew I had one little tiny ace in the hole. See, God is in control, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So I had one little ace in the hole, because if they deny you at the lower level, and these people at the lower level are less than desirable to work with and less than knowledgeable about IRS regulations. But I knew I had appeal rights, because if they deny you at the first level, you can appeal it.
Good for you.
Like go to the manager type of a thing?
Yes. So, well, there's a whole appeals department. Mm-hmm. So I told the lady, send my offer to the appeals department. She said, they're not going to say anything different than I just said to you. I said, but that's my right to do.
Oh, love it.
Send
Good
it
job.
over there. And she was mad, and she said, you'll never get this through. And I said, well, we'll see. She sent it to the appeals department. And then now another 3 months goes by. And then I get another phone call from a man, this time in the appeals department. And he says to me, what in the world is this? I said, you guys sound like a broken record.
Here we go
again. I said, it's my offer. My client, I said, do you see that he meets both qualifications? Well, yes, but. I said, no buts. Don't say but to me. He meets the qualifications. Therefore, he qualifies. Yeah, but we don't do $20 offers. But I said, don't say but to me. So he qualifies. And I said, with all due respect, but it's a crying shame that I have to read your regulations to you. Every single person I talk to doesn't know their own regulations. But does it not say that you will settle for whatever is their ability to pay? Well, yes, it says that, but no buts. It says that. So my taxpayer has the ability to borrow $20 from his brother, and that's his ability to pay. And I said, while you're thinking about that, let me add one more thing. If you deny me, I'm going over your head to your manager, and I'm going to tell your manager that you don't follow IRS regulations that are in black and white.
Man.
And if that manager turns me down, I'm going above her head to the district manager. And I know how to go all the way up 5 levels of managers until I make you guys understand that you're violating your own regulations.
Wow, the tiger came out.
And one more thing. While you all are thinking about it, I'm going to call a press conference. And I'm going to tell the news media that the IRS violates their own regulations.
Wow.
And by the time that makes its way up to Washington, D.C., y'all are going to be in a world of hurt.
So what ended up happening?
And then I shut up. And it was dead silence for a few minutes. And finally the guy said, well, technically you're right. I said, there's no technical about it. I am right. He said, okay. I'm going to approve this $20 offer.
Wow. And that was the first one
And that was the first one 20 years ago. And I've been doing it ever since. And I do hundreds of these a year successfully.
Wow.
And sometimes I've gotten $10 offers, $5 offers, a few $100 offers. It all depends on what your assets are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they could be all over the place. But now I have built a track record and a reputation that no one can match with these kind of offers. And when these offers come through, it's such a blessing to me. They call me on the phone with the tears coming out of their face. They cry and they say, Kathy, thank God for you. Yep. Thank God there's a company like yours.
Man, my cheeks are sore. I've been grinning ear to ear like I'm at a comedy show just hearing these stories, Kathy. So, but you do more than just tax settlement, as if that's not, I'm not saying that's not enough. That's incredible. $20 for how much did that specific person owe? Do you remember?
It was something like $50,000. Something like $50,000, yeah. And you know what? He says, I don't believe it. I don't believe you can do this because people don't think that that's doable.
Yeah,
In fact, when I tell people that, they don't even believe me half the time. I have to show track record of my settlements. And that's why the IRS hates Tax Tiger. When they get a Tax Tiger package and they go, oh, gee.
Right. That's probably the best endorsement you can get by the IRS, though. Hey, we hate this company. 1-star approval by IRS.
Right.
So, but you do more than just settlement. I believe you mentioned you do other things because not everybody qualifies for the settlement plan. Is that correct?
And that's correct. Because if you have too much assets, not assets, but equity, they look at the equity you have. A lot of people have homes with no equity in them. So you can have a home as long as there's no equity in it. So they look at the equity you have in homes. They look at and the other big one is retirement and investment money. If you've got a bunch of investment or retirement money, they're not going to settle with you. Those are the two big things, homes and investment money. And the other thing, the second qualification is income. So they look at your income and your living expenses, and the IRS has put all these regulations and charts together on how much for housing, car payments, just the basic necessities of life. And if you make too much money, let's say you make $5,000 a month, but I can only show that the basic necessities of life are $2,500. Now you're $2,500 too much income, and they're not going to settle with you.
Got it.
So I have to show that you spend everything you make with not much, if anything, left over. Those are the two qualifications. So if you don't meet those, then we go to another plan of action, and there's several of those.
Yeah, so I believe you mentioned like payment plans, hardship plans. You mind giving us the breakdown of how those different plans work?
Yeah, so I might negotiate a payment plan for somebody that doesn't qualify for an offer. And again, the payment plan goes by what you can afford to pay. So again, I have to do a person's financials, their living expenses. The assets don't matter so much in a payment plan as does the income and what you make. So then we figure out how much can you afford to pay? How much do you owe? Can you pay a couple $100 a month to pay this debt or more than that, or less than that? Or there's a lot of pieces that go into the puzzle of a payment plan on how much you can pay. Now, there is one really cool thing that the IRS came up with about 3 or 4 years ago, because before that, you would have to give the IRS, the taxpayers, income, financials, assets, the whole 9 yards when you go negotiate with them. you have to give all that.
Yeah.
Now they've got where you work, where you bank, so they can levy you. They've got all that. But along came another great IRS program where I use it a lot, where I don't have to disclose any of my clients' financials or assets to the IRS. And that one is simple, and it works like this. If you agree to pay the IRS back what you owe over 6 years, no financials are required.
Okay.
So let's say they owe $20,000. You divide that by 72 months. Boom, that's the payment plan. And no financials are given. Don't have to tell them if there's any investment money. Don't have to tell them if there's a lot of equity in a house. It's just, yeah, we'll agree to 6 years payment plan. That's a good one. So I use that a lot.
So can you combine, like, say that somebody owes $50,000. Can you combine that, like settle for 25 and then pay it over 6 years?
No.
Or
You can't combine any of the programs. They're standalone programs. But that was a good question.
Okay. And so when you are in a payment plan, are penalties or interest or any of that still accruing?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no way to get the interest not to accrue daily because the government lets the IRS have the interest. But there is a way sometimes to get the penalties abated and reduced. And we do a lot of that too. So sometimes they'll take off some of the penalties, but never the interest.
Got it. And so let's say somebody owed $20,000, but then they tacked on, another $5,000 to $10,000 in penalties. They'll still owe. You might be able to get the penalties reduced, but they would still owe the 20.
Yep.
Got it. And then that would be paid out over 6 years.
Yes.
What's the typical? Is it a variable interest rate? Does it depend on the situation, or is it always the same?
So it fluctuates. It's on the high side right now. When it used to run around 4%, which wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
But man, in the last year, they hiked it up to 8%.
Yikes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So kind of in line with wherever mortgages typically are.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. So there's a payment plan. And then I believe you also mentioned there's a cool thing called a hardship plan.
There is. So I have a great example of a hardship plan. A hardship plan means that you don't have any money to repay your debt at all. Your financial situation is in the hole, but you have assets. You might have equity in a house. Well, that equity in a house will not get you an offer in compromise because you can't have that. They can't afford a payment plan. So the IRS put this hardship plan together, which is basically good for 1 to 2 years only. It's like a temporary deferral a little bit. So the hardship plan says you don't have to pay anything right now. You can't afford it unless your income changes in a year or two. But if it stays the same, you can renew that hardship plan for another year or two. Okay. So that's a good program for people that have a little bit of assets but have no money to pay back their debt.
Well, what I'm loving to hearing you say is that there's options. There's not like people oftentimes suffer in silence. They think they're the only ones with this issue, right? And then they don't know what to do or who to go to, and it's just a weight around their neck.
Yes, totally.
So with Kathy, with Tax Tiger, there are options. You don't have to settle. You don't have to just do a payment plan. There's other things that you can do. And you also do tax returns. Is that correct?
I also do tax returns. Yeah. I have a tax return department. So if you want your tax return done correctly and right, come to see us, because a lot of these tax departments out there on the street that you can go to do not do your tax returns right. And I get a lot of clients coming to me showing me their tax return was done totally wrong.
Yikes.
And we have to redo it.
So that's actually what we're going to cover in the next segment. We're going to cover how to do your tax returns correctly and what you should do if you're a self-employed person, whether you own a business, LLC, 1099, independent contractor, how to avoid these types of tax situations. Back after this.
Anxiety, fear, and embarrassment. If you're one of the millions of Americans with unpaid or unfiled federal taxes, I'm here to offer you some hope and relief. Hi, I'm Kathy Hill, founder of Tax Tiger. Tax Tiger operates on the Christian principles of honesty and integrity. We're a full-service tax firm. Not only do we protect you from the IRS, we prepare your back taxes, release wage and bank levies, and negotiate the best settlements in the nation, many as low as $20. You can trust Tax Tiger to give you an honest and free appraisal of your situation. We will prepare your tax return every year, even if you have no IRS problem. We specialize in settlements and audits. You could be closer to financial freedom than you think, and you need a tiger on your side.
Call Tax Tiger for a free consultation now. 916-393-9085. That's 916-393-9085. Learn more at taxtiger.com.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
In our previous segment with Kathy Hill with Tax Tiger, we were talking about IRS settlements and how she's settling for pennies on the dollar for her clients. And there's so many other programs out there besides just the settlement program in case you don't qualify for that. But right now, today, we are going to be talking about in this segment how are tax returns done incorrectly versus correctly, and advice for self-employed people how to avoid getting into tax situations. So, Kathy, previously you were saying that your company does do tax returns. Is that correct?
We do. So we do tax returns all over the United States because the people that we've done their tax resolution, their settlement offers, their payment plans, they are so thrilled with my results that they want to come back and get their taxes done with me every year. So I've built up a clientele of clients and taxpayers that we do their returns every year. And so the returns are done right. They're done correctly. We are up to date on what's deductible, what's not. We're up to date on self-employed people and what they can take as deductions. I want to talk in a minute about some of the ways that people get in tax trouble or the occupations that are at the top of the list. But let me start with a story of a business owner. And small business owners are one of the prime areas where people get into tax trouble.
Yep.
For many reasons, but one of the main reasons is because they have employees and times are hard and they can't afford to pay the payroll taxes. Those are called payroll taxes.
I just had a conversation with my mother-in-law about this. And there was the company that she was trying to help with their books had some issues, and they had no idea about payroll taxes.
See?
Yes.
That's a big one. And when you don't pay your employees payroll taxes, what that means is that employee's Social Security money that should go to their credit doesn't. Now they've lost Social Security money.
Wow.
Yikes.
It's a big deal. And so when you owe payroll taxes, the IRS comes after you hard and fast, big time. They levy your bank account. They levy your company. It's rough. And so payroll taxes are one issue, but the other issue is these business owners just can't afford to pay it. The revenue is not coming in and they have to cut somewhere. So for some reason, the IRS is the last thing. And they rather pay their salaries and they rather pay their rent. And so the payroll gets last. But let me tell you a really heart-wrenching story that I had years ago is from a small business owner who actually went out of business. Owing the IRS, I think $129,000 was the amount.
Wow.
Didn't have a job, was despondent, in despair, depressed. And this man decided that he had no other way out but to take his life.
No.
And he was divorced. He lived in Florida. His wife lived in Texas. And he called his wife one day and said, I can't live like this anymore. I can't pay this debt. I have a gun and I'm going to take my life. And his ex-wife said, no, don't do that. Let me find you some help. She got online, looked through a whole bunch of companies, and focused in on Tax Tiger.
What stood out to her about your company?
She said that it looked like the tiger. My tiger image just appeals to people. The tiger personifies aggressiveness and that we will fight like a tiger. And that just stood out to her. And the name Tax Tiger, people tell me, just stands out to them too. So she called us. And she told us, my husband is ready to take his life. Can you help him? And of course I said we can help him.
Yeah.
Get him on the phone with me. I got on the phone with him. He told his story. I said, you're not going to take your life. I will fix this for you. You qualify for a settlement offer. You have no assets. you have no income, they're going to settle with you.
Wow.
So I talked him out of taking his life. I did the paperwork, put the settlement offer in, and we settled that debt for $50.
$50, and he owed over
$129,000.
Oh my gosh! And saved a life in the process.
And saved a life in the process.
Wow.
The other cool thing is that, and I'll divert one quick second, is that through him and many others over the years, I've had the opportunity to tell them that Tax Tiger is a faith-based Christian company. And do they understand what that means? And many of them said, that's why we called you in the first place. Because you say that in your radio spots. You say that in your ads. That you say that online. That's why we called you, because we knew we could trust you. But many of them have said, tell me what a Christian means. And I have been privileged to lead people to the Lord.
Wow.
In my office and over the phone because of my testimony.
Who thought the IRS would be leading people to the Lord?
That's a good one, Johnny. That's a good one.
Well, that's awesome. Awesome story. So you said there's wrong ways and right ways to do taxes. So what are some wrong ways you typically see them taxes done, tax returns? Because
they don't do their Schedule C right when they're self-employed. They don't know what to put down for deductions. They don't even put the right income down, because you have to, when you're self-employed or a 1099 worker, you have to make a P&L, a profit and loss statement.
Yep.
You have to list your income for the year and then all your deductions for your business. Do you have any idea how many small business, self-employed 1099 workers don't know how to do that?
I would say the majority of them.
The majority of them.
Yeah.
So the people that owe the IRS by far are 1099 workers, small business owners, and realtors, real estate agents. And I want to comment for a minute on real estate agents.
Oh, I know. We're definitely known to be in this category.
Very much so. So way back 20 years ago, when I started getting so many calls from real estate agents, and talking with them, I figured out that here's this common scenario. A real estate agent sells a house, makes a commission. No taxes are withheld. So they know, they know that they owe taxes, but they don't make it a priority. And they say to themselves, well, I need this commission to live on. So I'll pay the taxes on the next commission I make. And they keep pushing it down the road.
Yep.
And every commission they make, they need it to live on. And the end of the year rolls around and no taxes were withheld, and they owe a big amount of money.
Yeah.
Every single time I hear that story, I think, okay, so I've got to fix this. So I started, yes, I do a lot of offering compromises for real estate agents. I do a lot of payment plans. But then I decided to start making the rounds and talking at start talking at real estate offices so that I could start helping these people have a better plan of action.
Yeah.
So my plan of action to them now, both here locally and who I talk to on the phone, because I talk to people in all 50 states every day. Here's the plan, folks. When you make a commission, set aside 20%. Don't even figure out what your bills are. 20% goes in a savings account for taxes. Every commission.
How'd you come up with the 20%?
Because 20% is a good average for tax debt. Now, it could fluctuate. They might have owed 25%, or they might have owed less than 20%. But by the time you get to the end of the year, 20% is a fairly good average to withhold for taxes.
Okay.
So put aside that 20% and you'll be probably safe at the end of the year. If you have to come up with a little bit more, maybe, but it won't be bad. So I've got a lot of real estate agents doing that right now.
Yeah.
Is setting aside some money.
Well, that's when Valerie and I got into, business. The first business we actually had before real estate was we owned welding machines.
Oh.
I used to be a welder in the oil fields. And then when I got out of that industry, I would rent my machines out, my rigs out. And that was like, again, my mother-in-law has a background in bookkeeping, and she was always very diligent and very intentional with us about make sure you're saving for taxes, because that just has terrified Valerie and I from day one. But interestingly enough, we've also been setting aside roughly 20%, of our gross income every year to go towards taxes. So we've never run into it, but that is probably one of the things that scares us the most: lawsuits and getting behind on the taxes, because they just compound and they don't go away, and they don't. If you go through a bankruptcy, it's not like they get wiped out. So yeah, it's just terrifying for us. So 20% is what you recommend every single month.
Yes.
And then how do you help people? Like that's if you're already above water. Well, how do you recommend if somebody's starting? Because here's the thing too, is that let's say as a real estate agent, you have to learn the contracts, you have to learn lead generation, you have to learn negotiations, you have to learn the neighborhoods, you have to learn what's happening. There's all these other things an agent has to learn, or a business owner has to learn in their respective industry. And nobody teaches us about P&Ls. Nobody teaches us about taxes. Like, how many thousands of pages of tax regulations are there? And yet we are legally responsible to follow those laws.
Yes.
And so if somebody is struggling to, like, let's say they are paying, they're current on their taxes, or they're slightly behind, that doesn't go away. So how does somebody go from being behind to caught up without necessarily like shutting down their business or shutting down their marketing department or taking a hit? Like, how do you recommend somebody navigate that situation?
So what you have to do is take what you're behind and get on a payment plan for the back taxes that you're behind. And then going forward at the beginning of the next year in January, you start setting aside the 20%.
Okay.
So the payment plan part is where I'm going to come in, or maybe the hardship. Maybe you can't afford to catch up any of the back payments, but you have a house with equity in it. I might put you in a hardship for a year and let you catch up. But so we'll work on the back stuff that you owe, but I want you going forward to be current.
Got it. And the other thing too is that you're not alone in this. Again, I said it before, so many people suffer in silence, and it's because they think they're the only one, and so they delay contacting somebody. Or they don't know where to go.
Yes.
Because there's not a lot of companies out there like yours, right?
There's none like mine.
None like yours.
No.
As far as results. Absolutely. And so that's what we're going to cover in the next segment, though, is the difference between Kathy Hill and her company Tax Tiger, and then the other competitors out there that maybe, so we say, are taking advantage of you and are less than ethical.
Yes.
Back after this.
Anxiety, fear, and embarrassment. If you're one of the millions of Americans with unpaid or unfiled federal taxes, I'm here to offer you some hope and relief. Hi, I'm Kathy Hill, founder of Tax Tiger. Tax Tiger operates on the Christian principles of honesty and integrity. We're a full-service tax firm. Not only do we protect you from the IRS, we prepare your back taxes, release wage and bank levies, and negotiate the best settlements in the nation, many as low as $20. You can trust Tax Tiger to give you an honest and free appraisal of your situation. We will prepare your tax return every year, even if you have no IRS problem. We specialize in settlements and audits. You could be closer to financial freedom than you think, and you need a tiger on your side.
Call Tax Tiger for a free consultation now. 916-393-9085. That's 916-393-9085. Learn more at taxtiger.com.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
So there are good dentists and bad dentists, good mechanics and horrible mechanics, mechanics you never want to go back to again. We are fortunate to have on the show today Kathy Hill with Tax Tiger. It's taxtiger.com if you want to look her up online. And what we're covering today is the difference between paying your taxes and being behind and feeling that weight, and then getting it settled for pennies on the dollar. We've covered stories where somebody was over $120,000 in debt with the IRS, and it was settled for only $50. Somebody that had tens of thousands of dollars settled for $20. And of course, payment plans and all the different options that there are that Kathy offers. But you may be thinking, okay, well, Kathy sounds great, but I'm gonna Google some competitors and see what other options are out there. And Kathy, what what happens when people do that typically? Because your results are just unparalleled in the industry. So what have you seen when people come to you and they're like, hey, we tried option A and now we want to deal with a tax tigress?
Well, here's how, in all of my years of research, my competition works in various ways to what I call defraud the client. So they're out there to get the client, the taxpayers' money. And in my experience and in the stories that I hear, they care little for the actual person. They just want the money.
Just transactions.
Just transactions is all it is. So to get that client, because it's a competitive industry, and I think there's 100 tax resolution companies around the nation that do this. So they'll try to get clients in one of two ways. They'll quote a low fee. I call them bottom feeders.
Yeah.
They quote a low fee. And so if a person is shopping around and basing it only on fees and how much they have to pay, then they might try to choose one of these low guys that charges a very low amount, and then they get ripped off, and their tax problem doesn't even get fixed. I hear that over and over. So those guys are just after the money, and they don't do anything.
So people they're bargain shopping. They've selected the lowest fee.
Yes.
And then they pay that nominal fee, and then nothing happens. And then they have to go and pay more money to get it actually resolved.
Bingo.
Got it.
There's clients on the other end of the scale that charge way too much money, huge exorbitant amounts of money, and still don't fix the problem. I hear that day after day. So you're on the low end, you're on the high end. There's a lot of that. When I started Tax Tiger 20 years ago, researching the industry, I found, to my shock, that there were 3 big giant companies in this industry, huge mega firms that were doing this, and all 3 of them were shysters. One was right here in California, one was in Texas, and one was in South Carolina.
Is that an IRS term, shyster?
That's my term.
Those are your term. That's a Kathy Hill term.
I call them shysters.
Oh my gosh! But there were 3 main ones.
There were 3 big mega firms, and in my research, I found that all 3 of these big companies were doing $30 million a year in revenue. That's a lot of money.
Yeah,
$30 million a year, and all 3 of them were defrauding the public. All 3 of them had gotten away with it for 15 years.
Wow.
And I said, how can this be? Because it's illegal to defraud the public.
When you say defraud, like what specifically were they doing that was fraudulent?
They were taking people's money and not doing the work.
Oh.
So you can't pay somebody a fee to, for instance, get a settlement offer and then you get nothing. And they don't even put the settlement offer in.
That's horrible.
You paid for a service that you didn't get.
So it's not like, okay, yeah. So they're promising X. They're not delivering, but they still require you to pay.
Exactly. So what happened, this is a good part of this story. What happened is I started Tax Tiger and I began praying. I pray a lot over everything. And I began praying that God would take down those 3 big shysters. And it took a few years. It was 4 or 5 years into my 20-year plan. But guess what happened? In the same exact year, 3 different states, the Attorney General of California came in, the Attorney General of Texas, and the Attorney General of South Carolina in the same exact year. Now, how did that happen? That was God.
Wow.
And took all 3 of them out of business. Boom, they're gone. One of them got led away in handcuffs to jail. And now my 3 biggest competitors were gone. But that leaves plenty of more of them out there. Mm-hmm. So the biggest problem with my competition is that they don't do a good job, if they do any job at all, of solving somebody's tax problem. So I want to just read you one quick example of what a client wrote to me when he came to me and I fixed his problem, and then he wrote this review online. I took it offline to bring today because it's right from his heart. And he says, I have been with the IRS with issues for literally over 10 years. I've had problems with the IRS. I have had at least 3 other tax law firms that said they specialized in the offer and compromise program to represent me. All 3 of these firms took my money. They dragged out the process and got no resolution. I'm very thankful that I found Tax Tiger. They are amazing. I was kept apprised of all communications. Tax Tiger puts these big companies to shame. A big thank you to Tax Tiger for renewing my faith in this process. So that right there tells you that he paid 3 different companies, big ones, that claim they were experts. He wasted his money 3 times and got nothing until he came to me.
So people are like gonna just go to taxtiger.com. I want to reach out to you directly, but if they are doing their research, because a lot of times people will research other options, what are some red flags? What are some things that people can be aware of when researching tax resolution companies, so that way they don't end up as one of the...
Well, you need to go to the Better Business Bureau for one thing.
Oh.
Because we've had a Better Business Bureau A+ rating for all 20 years. That's a good indicator right there. So look at the Better Business Bureau rating, and then call and start asking questions to some of these people, and don't give them automatically your money. I had a client call me just this week, and he said, Kathy, I called one of these companies that advertises on TV, one of the big ones, your competition. He said, I did not like the sound of them. They sounded like a used car salesman. They pressured me to give them money, boom, without ever even analyzing my situation. You see, you've got to do a free consultation. You've got to analyze the assets and the income before you know what program they qualify for or how much to charge them.
That's a really good point. It's almost like a doctor just assigning medication without ever meeting with you.
Bingo. That's a good analogy, Johnny.
Thank you. Yeah. So unfortunately, we are running out of time, but I know it's so great having you on the show. Thank you so much. So if you want to reach out to Kathy Hill with Tax Tiger, go to taxtiger.com. That's taxtiger.com. Great name, by the way.
Thank you.
And then you can also call them directly at 916-393-9085. That's 916-393-9085. Thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure, Johnny.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.